welcome back to the Blocks Retro Repair YouTube channel. Today we're working on this Sega line of fire. In the previous part we replaced this bottom half of the wood. Now we need to restore the rest of the cabinet, and to do that we're going to be repainting all of the wood. Mainly because we need to repaint this section here that we replaced half the board on, and because all of the paint's in pretty bad shape. And also somebody spray painted like the bottom quarter of this machine with some not so well matching spray paint. So we're just going to repaint all of the black and make it so it all matches. Which means we have to tape off our artwork, make sure all that's protected, so we can paint everywhere that, well, needs painted. Up here where we unfortunately have some damage to the artwork, I'm just going to tape this off and we're going to paint this section black as well, just to make it so it matches a little bit better. Got all the labels on the back taped off. Those ones are stickers, so obviously couldn't remove them. This one's a metal plate, and I'm not sure how it's removed. It's smooth screws on this side, so I'm assuming there's nuts under there, but I can't reach them or see them or feel them, so I don't know, maybe they're rivet ones for some reason. I mean, it's their plate. They probably didn't want that to come off. But that's all taped off. Made sure I taped the sides and everything, so it is good. Everything is roughly taped out. We'll have to actually tape off the section, but I'm not going to waste like 50 feet of tape to tape off all of these. We'll get some paper and stuff or plastic and tape off those middle sections. Now what we need to do is actually do a little bit more wood repair. Unfortunately, while this side was the main bad side, this side has some damage, and all over has a little bit of damage that I'd like to do a little bit of repair work to. As you can see, there's a little bit of damage on the back and bottom side of this side. Some artwork damage, but we don't really mind that. A couple nicks around the corners. This side's pretty good, a little bit over there. Now we'll patch things that are simple like this damage here and the damage on the side and the bottom of that wall, because, you know, it's a super easy thing to do while we're painting it right now. We're not going for a full brand new restoration, as I already said. This thing is unfortunately, you know, too far gone for that unless I wanted to put a ton more labor into it. I'd have to replace all the artwork, get all that reprinted, and I'd be so insanely underwater on this machine, it would be ridiculous. We're just kind of going for a little bit of a touch-up, kind of like a refurbishment. We're going to call it that, a refurbishment. We're not going for a brand new look, we're going for a little bit better of a look. Kind of protect it a little bit and make it not look so dingy. There we go, I use an electric sander just to knock them down a little bit. Now I'm going to take a sanding block, that little foam sanding block there, and we're just going to knock it down the rest of the way. Hopefully it'll be nice and smooth and we won't have to do any more coats. Unfortunately, I just removed this front corner protector and the front corner is gone. So we need to clean that up and see what we're left with, see what we got to do there. It doesn't look terrible, I think just some body filler will fix it up, but well, that sucks. Gone ahead and done a rough sanding on a bunch of the surfaces, so what I'm going to do now is finish taping off these logos. To do that, I'm just going to use some of this plastic masking stuff. It's for painting, it's to mask stuff off. We're going to use that, tape it around all of the artwork, so we don't end up painting any of the artwork. And then I'm going to go ahead and clean all the dust off of everything, because it is covered in a nice, healthy, thick coat of dust. I think we'll get ready to put on our first coat of paint, see where there's still damage that I care to fix, and fix that. But I'm going to start masking. I've started the painting process down there. I also went ahead and got everything taped off. I had to use like 3 different types of tape because I kept running out. So now we're going to go ahead and give everything a nice healthy coating of paint. That should make this look a whole lot better. We got our first coat on. We're going to let this dry, and we're probably going to put at least 2 more coats of paint on this. So in a few hours to minutes, we'll throw another coat of paint on this. Went ahead and put a 3rd coat on everything, so it's about time to start peeling everything off once all this dries. Started with this here, and I peeled all of the masking off of this, and that looks absolutely incredible. That looks a ton better. And there we go. That just improved the look of this machine so incredibly much, just by not having that damage down there and being all one color. Far too many people don't tape off the badges and stickers whenever they paint, and it is one of the most important things you can do, because if these are painted over, it just looks absolutely terrible. And if we come up here to where we were missing artwork, it still doesn't look great, because we are missing artwork, but it looks a whole lot better, all matching one color, than it being a giant spot of just wood. That looks so much better, and it's just such a simple thing that you can do to improve a look of a machine without having to spend the hundreds of dollars of getting this reprinted. And since we painted it all to match, that looks so much better. It's no longer unevenly spray painted across this bottom half, now it all is again one color. Now we move to the inside. We need to get this inside cleaned up and, well, cleaned up, and get all these electronics remounted and stuff. I need to pull that power supply out and order the correct power supply. and see what else we can do to this bad boy. So I've got this thing cleaned up. There's a little bit of dust in that back corner, but I just noticed that. It's pretty good. It's a hell of a lot better than it was. We're going to be putting these cable ties back in. We got our power button mounted back up, got all these wires in. We're going to replace our fan. I got that mounted, but our fan is this 120 volt fan that barely turns, and I dislike 120 volt fans in arcade cabinets. They're always way too loud. So what we're going to do is put in a 12 volt Noctua fan, since we have our 12 volt power supply right there. That'll make this cabinet nice and silent, so that'll be a huge upgrade. TV is bolted in, they got the cover on it. Now we need to wait for our brackets to dry so we can mount our new fan. While we're doing that, let's mount the coin door, and we can fire this thing up and see if it still functions. A while ago at this point, ignore all the dust, that's why, I actually powder coated all of these original door pieces, so they're looking a whole lot better, because these were also spray painted with really bad runs and everything, so I got these sandblasted down and powder coated. So let's get this frame mounted in, and then we'll bolt in our doors. I'm gonna go figure out where the other door went in the bin of parts for this machine. Hopefully the powder coat's all in good shape, and we can get all this stuff bolted back together. Got that plate mounted there. We got the coin door in. I got one of the coin mechs in. I'm missing the plastic piece for this one right here. I believe that piece was damaged. I think it was missing the external plastic piece when I got the machine, so I gotta go grab one of these out of storage and put that in it. But that is looking absolutely fantastic. While we're here, we might as well plug this thing in, though, and see if this thing actually turns on. I also gotta go figure out where I put the mirror, but we'll see if it'll turn on first. I plugged it in. I think I hear high voltage, so I guess our power switch is switched on. Nothing has blown up yet, but I also don't think I see any picture on the screen yet. So let's just let this sit for a little bit and see if it explodes. It's getting 120 in, but it is not putting out any voltage, so this thing has failed. That makes this simple. We need a new power supply. I guess that's why I never mounted this thing. Maybe it failed previously on me. I didn't realize that. Oh well, I guess we'll order a new power supply, slap that in here, and hopefully it'll work. Well, I actually found this very nice HAP one that has 15 amps on the 5 volts, so that should be plenty. So let's slap this in. It looks a lot better. If this one fails, I'll be surprised. Oh yeah, when I was cleaning it, I found this, which is good. That means we don't have a counterfeit machine. Basically, that's supposed to be mounted right in that square of glass right there. So we're gonna re-put that back there. The power button, see if anything goes kabang now that we have the 5 volts hooked up. Nothing exploded, and we have a light on this power supply, so let's see if the game turns on. The game actually turned on this time, so I'm gonna go get the mirror to put in that and put it back in, and let's see if we can play this. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to replace this mirror. These lines here are the mirror missing on the other side of the mirror, so I'm gonna have to get a new mirror for this. There we go. That's looking incredible. I actually did find the other piece of plastic, so I got the other coin mech installed. See, I need a bulb for this one. This one's bulb, I guess, is bad. This gun, it's working. Our force feedback is extremely weak, so we'll have to work on that. I don't know, maybe our motor needs some work, maybe our coil needs some work. I'm not remembering how this exactly works, but this one works. Sometimes it gets stronger, and then sometimes weaker, so maybe we have a power issue. This one here, actually, I guess I'm out of credits on this one. Sometimes it makes a really loud clunk, and then it stops doing anything, so we'll have to figure that out. I'm not sure why it's doing that, but it is. You may be noticing I'm missing the pieces of metal that cover these guns, and I'm not entirely missing them. I have exactly one set, and that one set is in horrendously bad condition, but I only have one set, so I'm going to have to straighten this set to the best of my ability, and we're going to have to make a new set. We'll get some steel and bend it to shape and all that fun stuff. That sucks. We won't have the artwork on it, which also really sucks, but at least there'll be something there to cover up the, well, finger pinching gap. We got our Noctua fan installed. This is why I love these things. It is running and it is perfectly silent. It is one of the best upgrades in my opinion to an arcade machine, is to replace the stupidly loud AC fans with a really silent DC fan like that. Went ahead and got the seat uncovered so we could get this just sitting here to get an idea of what this is going to look like. Again, absolutely monstrously large machine. So we do have some damage here. I did steam this and flatten this out because this was fully rolled up and all ripped off, so we've restored that to the best that we can without fully replacing it. We'll again paint that section black like we did over on the side of this machine. And here we have where I had to kind of punch through to wash out the ant colony that was living in this. It was already missing mostly. It was just this last layer that was still there. So we're going to have to rip this off the rest of the way and put in a new piece of plywood that we'll paint black right there. We're also going to have to fully disassemble all his metal parts and get them sandblasted. I think they're too big for my oven, unfortunately, so we'll probably just have to paint them instead of powder coating them. That sucks, but at least they'll look better than this once they're sandblasted and properly painted. The head screws sticking out. I cut them as flush as I could, but they're still sticking out a little bit, so I cut this board to shape with the correct angles and everything to actually slot in place, and I just drilled some countersink for the little bits of the screws that are sticking out. I don't have the correct flush cut cutters, I guess, to cut those. I just used a pair of wire cutters that was strong enough. basically, we need to glue that in there, not do that, and air nail it on. The board is installed. Now we need to get some body filler, and we need to repair this. As you can see, we got not the smoothest piece of scrap wood to use for this, but it's what I had. We need to repair this damage right here because we have a chunk of wood missing there, and we have some soft wood over here that we need to glue back together. So I'm going to break out the wood glue some things, going to break out the body fill a few things, and we'll let this thing sit again. Well, I didn't quite mix up enough, but I'll get that extra whenever I do my second coat, because let's be real, it'll definitely need a second coat. Went ahead and sanded this a little bit. Now what we're going to do is we need to fill a gap there, we need to fill a gap down here, and we need to rebuild this section of the wood. As you can see, the wood is broken off here, and it should stick out to where this edge of the tape is. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some more body fill on this edge, and then when it's half dry, so it's just kind of warm and not fully hard, we're just going to take a razor blade and just cut it off the extra, and it should leave us with a nice edge when we're done, and a lot easier than trying to sand that edge. Now we let this sit for a little bit, and at the perfect timing, we're going to take a razor blade and cut that edge. But we have to wait till it's at the perfect, somewhat flexible, not fully hard state. So I'll give it a few minutes, we'll check it, and hopefully it will be right on. This is what we're looking for. Still flexible, but it's holding its shape and not sticking to me, so now I can take this razor blade and just trim that edge nice and smooth. I put this piece of tape, lined it up at the top and the bottom, so I know exactly my template that I need to cut along. It's at this state, the razor blade just glides through it like butter. And that is how we repair that. Now, once this dries, we'll take a foam sanding block and sand along this edge. That'll make it a little bit smoother, a little bit more even, but that is a quick and easy way to fix that edge there. That is looking great. Now, if you didn't do this method and you just had the Bondo there, you'd have to do a lot of sanding to knock that down, and then once you finally did knock it down, you're probably going to end up with a slightly rounded edge and not as square as the wood would have been originally, which is why we're doing this method to get us a much more square edge. Now, anyone that restores cars is probably looking at this and like, what the hell are you doing? You're using way too much Bondo weld-in new metal. But, you can't really do that with wood. I'd have to rip this apart, and this is generally considered the best course of action for this kind of repair, because you'd have to replace the wood, and then you're looking at non-original wood, and you'd have the artwork and all that, so in most circles, this is generally considered better than having to replace the wood, unless the wood is like what we did there at that bottom edge. Then in that case, yes, you do actually need to replace the wood. That's what we're looking for. Look at that edge. That looks beautiful. Now we need to recut our T-trim slot, so I'm going to grab the router and cut that out. With that, our T-trim slots are now functional again, so that's good news. Now, honestly, I think we're getting ready to paint this, but before we do that, we need to strip off all this metal parts, pull this away from this thing, and figure out what we need to paint. There's probably going to be more wood damage at the bottom before we can actually paint, but let's pull some stuff apart. Now, you may be noticing this section right here, and I'm not bondoing it, and that's for the same reason as we did on the artwork up here. I don't want to sand that close to the artwork, so unfortunately, we're just going to have to leave this like this, but again, we'll paint this section here black, and that'll help hide that a lot better than the way it looks right now. Okay, so we have a bit more work ahead of us. As you can see, that's not ideal. Again, we're missing our feet. That's weird. We only have these feet on this entire cabinet. The two on the metal pieces there. We're missing the two there, and we're missing the forefront of the cabinet. I don't know what was going on with that, but I guess we'll have to replace those. But as you can see, we have a bit of damage here. It's not as bad as it could be, but it's not great. So I've drew around those sections in wood glue to glue what's there still back together, and then we'll do our body work after all that dries. But we got the clamps there to hold all the wood together and pinch it nice and tight. So now what we're going to do is start removing these pieces of metal. It looks like we have a wooden beam that actually comes out that this all bolts to, which is interesting. I would have thought they would have used a piece of metal, but let's get this all unbolted and clean it up. Well, I got the seats off. Interestingly, this board just pulls right out. That's odd, I guess. It's not just a one-piece board. It is made out of plywood. But that's pretty cool. We'll get this thing nicely painted up as well before we slide that back in. Both bucket seats off, as you can see. They're literally just generic bucket seats. And I actually thought these were original as well, but these are not. These are actually aftermarket as well. They're rusted, so we're going to probably just throw them out. But whoever put them on did it really stupidly because they had the bolts on the seats too long for these to actually turn. So the whole swivel part was completely pointless. I don't know why they bothered with that. But what this is supposed to have is plastic seats that bolt on to all four sides, and you're sitting technically on the metal, but with a plastic piece in between you. So, unfortunately, I don't have those. Maybe we could think about recreating those in the future. That might be something to give a try. I've never done that before, but we could today, and maybe we can learn something. Well, I did some sandblasting. I got these two done. These two I was not able to finish because it's starting to rain a little bit, and that'll screw everything up. So we're not going to do that until that dries, but now we're back to this bad boy. Finally found the back door for this cabinet, so I slapped some glue on all the loose pieces here, and we'll let that dry. Now, if you need to do something to support the body work that you're doing, you can take a board, but put some tape on it first. This way you'll be able to actually remove the board without completely ripping off all of the body work that you just did. With that tape, it'll hopefully probably leave the tape in the bodywork, but it's tape, you'll be able to peel it off, and if not, you'll be able to sand it out. It's not that big of a deal. The wood, however, is probably going to rip off the body fill with it if you were to try and just use a bare piece of wood. Once this dries up, we'll get these boards peeled off, we'll get that sanded to shape, and we should be good. It's just a simple corner repair. They're fairly common when it comes to arcade machines. For some reason, the sharp corners seem to get damaged fairly often. And there we go. Just like that, we have our corners repaired, we have our T-trim slot cut in it. It looks great. So, honestly, I think we're time for paint. So, it means we gotta get this thing cleaned up, get all the dust and dirt off, tape off all the artwork, and start throwing some paint. Now we're ready to paint, but this time I'm gonna show you how I actually paint these cabinets. A lot of people always ask this, and I usually don't show it because a lot of people that don't know what they're talking about get up in arms that I'm painting it this way. You paint it with a roller. It is that simple. You don't need no stupid expensive spray gun. You're painting wood. You're not going to get a good coat using a spray gun, an automotive spray gun, and automotive paint on wood. Now, I have not tried one of those actual latex paint sprayers. I've wanted to, but I don't want to buy one to find out. So we're just going to continue using rollers. Now, I've taken a cheap roller here. You could buy the foam ones, but I'm going to be perfectly honest. I can't tell a difference, and honestly, I've had worse results with the foam rollers. In my experience, I've had the foam rollers leave more of a textured finish, which I don't really like. These ones leave you a much smoother finish. However, you have to add some Floetrol to the paint to make it actually go down smooth. Now, this one is wrapped in packing tape because that's what I like to do to rip off any loose fibers. Wrap them in packing tape, and then rip off the packing tape, and it takes a bunch of the loose fibers that would end up in your paint off of the roller. Plus, you can get a pack of like 18 or so of these ones for almost the price you spend on one foam roller. One foam roller is like $12 or something. You can get a pack of 18 of these for like $26. It's ridiculous. Once you use 2 foam rollers, you're over the price of a giant pack of these. You just need the short hair ones. You're not doing anything super, well, I guess textured, so you don't need the really long-haired ones. Just get the thin-haired ones, and you'll be perfectly fine. You just use a very small amount of this stuff. This is basically just a paint thinner. It thins the paint out a little bit, makes it so if you have any brush marks or anything, it just kind of, as it dries, flow flat and gets rid of those. Just get this stuff shaken up. You do not need much of this. Like, genuinely, it is such a small amount of this stuff that you need. It's kind of ridiculous. And then simply paint like you're painting your house. Just try not to paint your basketball machine you're using to hold up your board. Now, I try to say this in pretty much every video where I paint something, like, well, okay, not something, but when I paint an arcade cabinet that would have T-trim, a lot from the factory did not paint under the T-trim. In this case, it's a little hard not to paint the T-trim slot, but you want to paint the T-trim slot because anywhere that the wood deviates from how the exact dimensions of the T-trim is, you're gonna end up being able to, especially if you bondoed an area, definitely paint any like body fill because that'll stand out incredibly against your T-trim. But just bare wood, if you can see any of that hanging out from under your T-trim, it's gonna look terrible. So just paint your T-trim slots. It'll look so much better. There's our first coat that mostly got sucked into the wood. So we'll have to obviously put a second and probably third coat on this thing. I also finished sandblasting these. I'm debating between powder coat and just painting them. I could, you know, paint them, prime them, all that fun stuff. They'll just barely fit in my powder coating oven though, so I might do that. We might wait till a later date to do that because I got some other stuff I need to powder coat and I don't have time to do that all the day, so I'll probably just wait if I do decide to powder coat them. Ultimately, everything else on here is powder coated. Guns are all powder coated, coin doors are powder coated, so I should probably just powder coat them as well, but so much more work. Now, when I originally painted the other side of this cabinet when I replaced that board, I did use a foam roller, but that was because I had one, and I didn't realize I had any of the others kind, and I always thought the foam rollers were better. They're twice as expensive, so they better be better, right? But then it just kind of ended up with a textured finish that I didn't really like. I don't know if it's the, like, cupping in the foam that causes the texture or what, but just didn't like it. And also, unless you buy the real expensive foam ones, they have a crease usually, and then that also doesn't look too great. And when I was looking for foam rollers, I saw the reviews, and apparently I'm not the only one that experiences that, so that's why we're no longer using foam rollers here. Second coat is on. I think one more coat, and this will be finished. Now, I went ahead and got new feet for all around on this cabinet. We're going to thread these into these two spots here. The wheels go on the back of this. That's fine there. This one here, we need one in each corner, and I think we're going to add a fifth one to this front here, because whenever this is on it, it's fine, but when this is not on it, well, then that front edge just sits on the wood there, and I don't really like that, and I think we should add a foot there, just in case this isn't on it, it doesn't just ride on that piece of wood there and damage it. Basically, we just need to drill a hole in the center of this, put this in here, screw it in, and that'll hold that. In case the front's not on it, it doesn't sit on the edge of this wood like it did right here. It'll, like, actually sit on the foot and not tear up this edge. And now we have our 5 feet on this, our 4 original and our 1 extra there in the center. Now, we do need to put on our metal corners, but again, I gotta get this powder coated. I also still gotta sandblast those, but those will be powder coated whenever I guess powder coat those. Same with, I believe there's something else I need to powder coat, but I also need to make our new piece of metal for right here. I have one of them. It's in bad shape, but I have one of them. But I got to use that one to copy to make our second one. There's a piece of metal that obviously covers the finger pincher 9000. Back door lock back on, back door actually on. So now it's time to rip the taping off our artwork and see what we're left with. Make sure it didn't bleed through anywhere. It's not a big deal if it did. We can remove this paint off of the artwork fairly easily. But let's peel off the tape and see what we're left with. So that's looking much, much better. Now, the only thing really left is a bunch of metalwork. We need to make our custom other one of these covers. We got to powder coat these. We got to powder coat these front corners. We got to figure out if we want to custom make our fiberglass seats and try to remake them like they would have been originally. I might maybe 3D print a mold and practice with fiberglass. I've never made anything out of fiberglass, but that could be something fun to learn. What we can do a while is go ahead and install T-trim. I got that huge bundle of T-trim, so we can go around and start installing it. As you can see, this T-trim greatly improves the look of the machine. It's kind of dirty T-trim. I need to wipe it down, but we'll do that once we get it all installed. I'm hitting it with a rubber mallet, which kind of leaves some dust and dirt on it. So let's continue around. Let's do the other side, then we'll move on to the inside of the seat area. Now we've finished the seat, so now we're going to move on to the cabinet. Now, it may be tempting to just do this small section here, but we should start with the large section because it's going to be a lot easier if we run out on the short section, because if we run out on the short section, that means we only have a piece that's at maximum like 3 feet long. If we do the short sections and we end up running out on the long section, we could have a piece that's like 7 feet long that's still too short. So, honestly, it could probably be like 9 or 10 feet long and still be too short. So we're going to start with the long sections. On a section like this that is a full loop, you want to start at the bottom or the least seen spot, which is going to be the bottom. So we're going to start our section right here. Got that side done. Now we're working on this side over here, getting this tapped in. And there we go. The T-trim is looking absolutely beautiful. The only thing left now is one, we need to make it so the screen's not so blue. We just need to turn down the blue drive pot. That's super simple. We need to get our metal work for our second metal cover and fix our super bent up first metal cover. Get these things sandblasted, powder coated, make our fancy custom seats, which all sounds like a lot, but considering what all we did to this cabinet, we replaced that entire bottom section of that wood, that entire backboard. We did a lot of work to this machine already. What's left is a lot, but not near as much as what we've already done. Look for a new mirror for this as well. This thing just looks so incredible after the amount of work that we did to it. It better. Now, unfortunately, I'm missing that door. I know I have it. I just gotta figure out where in the world I put it. I just can't get over how amazing this ended up turning out after how badly water damaged this machine was. Ignore all the dust that has settled on this that, again, I'll have to wipe off. But if you remember what the back of this cabinet looked like when I first got it, this is such an insane transformation. It is absolutely incredible. From a machine that was literally sitting outside, uncovered, that they were originally trying to sell for like $400. It obviously didn't sell for $400, and they ended up just giving it away for free, and I went and picked it up. And we also got to figure out why we don't have any sound. We should probably figure that out as well. Hopefully maybe one of those speakers, well, actually it has 2 speakers, so maybe hopefully both those speakers just happen to be so water damaged they can't put out any sound. Kind of doubt that, but possibly. But leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.